everybody. Sorry for the hiatus. The beginning of the school year sort of hit us like a train, so we're trying to get back to it. So today we are here at the old Bethesda Church and Cemetery here in Aberdeen, North Carolina. And as you can see behind me, we have the beautiful Bethesda Church. And I'll be showing you that as well as the cemetery. So this community actually was formed right after the Revolutionary War. It was mostly formed by Presbyterian Highland Scots who, as I've mentioned before, were some of the earliest settlers to this area. And the congregation here originally gathered at the headwaters of Rockfish Creek. It really is the oldest congregation in Moore County here in North Carolina. Now it became called Bethesda Church about 1804 when the Reverend Murdoch McMillan took over as the minister. And it was very nearby to Blues Crossing, which was also formed about the same time period, right after the Revolutionary War. It's just a little bit west of here. Now, the original structure, when they moved their location to where we are here, was just a log cabin built in the early 19th century. And it was replaced in about 1832 by a larger frame meeting house, which was pretty typical of the time period. Now, in 1862, this building was constructed to house their growing congregation. And it's one of the few existing mid-19th century Presbyterian churches, and it still has its original specifications. We have written down documentation of exactly how they put it together, the original plans, as it were. And so it's rare that you run across that. So it's pretty cool that that's in existence. Now, because of that original specifications, we do know that it is pretty much exactly as it was when it was originally built. The only thing that's really been added is this square steeple here, and that was added sometime between 1865 and 1890. We're not exactly sure when. Otherwise, it is exactly as it was built 1862. Now, one of the original descriptions, I'll read you, it's pretty wonderful. So it's of simple design with 5 doors, 3 leading into the main sanctuary and 1 on each side leading into the balcony, in the back of which was a gallery for the slaves to worship. So of course, not long after this was built, the Civil War came along, actually sort of built in the middle of it. About 1,500 of the residents of this area did end up going off to fight in the Civil War. Only about a third of them, I think, were killed. So it really decimated the population here. The only battle that happened anywhere near close to here was the Battle of Monroe's Crossroads, which was about a few miles east of here on what is now Fort Bragg. And it happened March 10th, 1865. It was actually one of the last all cavalry battles during the Civil War, which is sort of interesting in and of itself. But this location here at the church, the night before that battle, some Union soldiers sheltered here, and they had the officers inside the church and enlisted men under the church. So they were trying to get warm in some way, shape, or form. March is still a little chilly around here sometimes. Now, this was the lone house of worship within 20 square mile radius until the late 1880s. So it held high respect in the community even after other churches started to be established in the area. Now, in 1910, the town of Blues Crossing, which had then become Aberdeen, was really growing, and it's just a little bit down the road here, but it needed a more central church, basically. And so they built a new chapel, 1910, down closer to the village itself. So this building became used a little less frequently and basically deteriorated until 1927. At that time, the pastor, Reverend Gaston, decided that it was a shame that this building was really falling down. So he called for a homecoming service and a fund drive to happen that year. So he invited all local residents of Scottish heritage, as well as descendants of the original congregation, to come and attend this. Apparently it was so successful, it became an annual event for many, many, many years. And the old Bethesda Cemetery Association was formed. Now you can probably see we have a pretty large cemetery surrounding here. Now this is actually the new section. We'll go over to the old section in a few minutes and show you some of the graves over there. Now there are a few major names for the area, of course, buried here. This cemetery served the congregation here as well as the surrounding community, and has served it for more than 150 years. So there are some older graves here, certainly, and we'll take a look at some of those. As we go through here, you may see that there are quite a lot of names that show up frequently. The Blue family is very prominent here, as well as the McDonalds. They both live just down the road here. Once we get to the old cemetery, we'll also see the Shaw family, which I've mentioned before. And you'll just see a lot of Scottish names in general here. McKeithans, McLeans, Campbells. It's really quite a beautiful cemetery. One of the most prominent families here in the Aberdeen area is the family of the Pages. As you can see, we've got a few of their markers here. And some of them served in World War I and II, as the two in front of me here can be seen. Here is the gravesite of Robert Newton Page, who was a U.S. congressman for a good bit of time, and his brother, Walter Hines Page, was editor and publisher and U.S. ambassador to England during World War I. On the other side of the road with the older part of the cemetery over here, you may see a few Confederate flags. There were, like I said, about 1,500 of the local residents here did fight in the Civil War. Probably the majority, if not all, on the Confederate side. And so we have quite a few of those graves through this section of the cemetery here. As you can see here, a lot of the older graves here are really not in good condition, but thankfully someone has put up newer markers to designate who is in this location when the original stones no longer work. You can even see that some of the grave sites here, the original headstones aren't stone so much as wood, in which case they've definitely disintegrated over the years. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little bit of history about the town of Aberdeen and its congregation here at the old Bethesda Church. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the cemetery. Feel free to come out and check it out yourself. It's really, like I said, a beautiful place. They do wonderful events annually still, so come see it. And as always, get out and explore your world.